wasn't until recently that I even learned that making 60 FPS animations was kind of a dumb thing to do, especially when it's literally just lines on the screen. Yeah, those gold lines right here, these, yep, those. Originally, I did them in 60 FPS because, the gaming world has ruined me and turned me into an idiot for FPSs. Anyway, I wanted to make a video today about a few things. Mostly just a rant about the current state of gaming and the tech world. Um, as an engineer and a manager of other engineers, I've been paying some attention to the political going-ons in the tech and gaming industries lately regarding crunch culture and the harassment culture that's been going on. And yes, I mean harassment culture. I honestly, I'm not well versed with the Twitterverse enough or the internet enough to know whether or not harassment culture is a term that's being used. But regardless of whether or not it's a buzzword, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing, and I am really, really tired of people giving the tech industry the excuse of, well, women are new to the industry, so we're still adjusting. No, fuckface. No. Women are part of the human race. They've been here since day one. You don't get to hide behind some bullshit excuse like that. You're lacking in understanding of their needs, has nothing to do with how new they are to the industry, and has everything to do with how blatantly neglectful you are towards your employees and how much you refuse to be a decent human being since day one until someone yelled loudly enough about it. So anyway, that's going to be the kind of the topic of the video today. If you like this format of video, I will possibly look into making more. I usually write these kinds of rants into my blog posts, but because I'm getting more and more into YouTube now, and I enjoy making videos, I think I'm more than happy to start making some videos like these and kind of talk about topics that make me want to rip my hair out sometimes. So, diving into the topic, the worst part about this whole thing that I've been noticing is it's not just about women versus men. It really never has been. It's always been about corporations versus their employees, and the great thing that these corporations do to make it look like it's a social issue and not literally just a corporate issue. When a company gets big enough, and from what I've noticed, I've worked at smaller companies, I've worked at bigger companies, I've worked at companies in between. And when a company gets big enough, obviously the CEO or the founder of the company doesn't really have time to deal with a lot of the more common issues that employees and working in a company with multiple people kind of come up with. So what they'll do is they'll separate leadership from the people who actually do the heavy lifting, because leadership focuses on the big picture and the objectives of the company as a whole, rather than just focusing on how did this program get a bug in it. A lot of CEOs don't care about the bug. They care about how to get from point A to point B, and then the programmers worry about the bugs, or the QAs worry about the bugs, the testers, what have you. And in order to have this work efficiently, you need someone in between the leadership and the heavy lifters. That's where managers come in. And what managers generally are supposed to do is take care of things like pay time off, internal deadlines, employee behavior, hiring and firing employees, training employees. That's all stuff that executives and even directors in some cases really shouldn't even be getting involved with. It's not something that really pertains to them. So you hire a manager to focus on all of those things. The problem is, from what I've noticed, that there are so many managers that get hired into these positions, and immediately their first concern isn't how do I make my team better, it's how do I get my next promotion. So what they start doing is looking for ways to make the team efficient and non-problematic, because if you have an efficient and non-problematic team, that means in the eyes of a higher leadership, that means that you are doing a great job. However, that may not always be the case, but it is how you get your next promotion in most cases. A good manager would do this and make an efficient team by understanding the gaps and strengths of their team. They organize the work in such a way that people work on what they're good at. And if no one on that team is good at something that needs to get done, the manager has one of two choices: either focus on educating your existing staff or supplement your existing staff. Either you hire out to get that new skill set or you train your current staff to get that skill set. Now, if this need for education or resources comes with impacts to deadlines, then the manager needs to collect the information and put it together in an argument for the directors and above, explaining to them without any shame or concern, if the company wants to reach a deadline, then the company needs to provide what is needed to reach that deadline. And if the company doesn't have the budget, then they need to adjust that deadline. And that's the bottom line. That does not mean that they need to start now forcing more strict work ethic or not even work ethic, the more strict work rules upon their employees, because that's what a bad manager does. A bad manager goes to their employees and says, hey, you're behind on all your work and now you have to work longer hours. I'm like, well, no. Just because your deadlines made it impossible for me to finish this work doesn't mean that I'm behind. It means that you have unrealistic expectations. A bad manager tracks everything their employee does, and I've seen this happen in corporate environments. Well, they'll track bathroom visits. They'll track every cigarette break. They'll track every time that you need to just get up and get away from your desk. They'll track every time an employee goes out for a walk because they just need to stretch their legs. Bad managers are more concerned with reprimanding employees rather than ever building them up. A bad manager is going to continue beating people down because their own job, and they know this, a manager knows full well that they can be replaced by anyone. That's right, that's the big secret. Management is always replaceable. Always. And you know who's not replaceable? The developers, the writers, the animators, the artists, the sound designers. People with skill sets that can't just be picked up in a 2-week seminar about agile project management or a leadership retreat focused on team synergy. Those are the people who can be replaced. The developers, writers, animators, artists, sound designers, they can't. You can't replace these skills. These are years and years of work put into a skill set that needs to be developed and harnessed and polished. And you cannot just replace these people overnight. No one wants to admit that, and no one wants to say that publicly, because a lot of corporations always rely on the idea that, well, we're a big corporation, we have tons of money, we can replace you whenever we want. It's not that easy. I don't care how much money a company has. Replacing a developer on an ongoing project is a fucking nightmare. I've done it, I've tried to do it, it never goes well, and it's always very, very difficult to do. So, let's put it this way. Let's say all the managers in a company decide to just get up and say, you know what, we're done. All the managers are going to get up and walk out. It would take maybe a month to 3 to 4 months, depending on how big the team was, to replace that entire management team. And now, granted, I will say this, the repercussions of that replacement might impact even 6 months further. I've seen this happen. This isn't just me pulling numbers out of nowhere. I've seen this actually happen in a company where the entire management team, because of a failed project, the board of directors comes down and says, all right, you know what? Management screwed this up. We're going to get rid of the entire management team. We're going to tear them apart and replace it with a new management team. And fairly quickly, you end up with new projects on track, and now things are actually moving forward. Now imagine that in a video game company, the same thing happens, but on the other side of that coin is all the developers, the animators, the writers, the artists, the sound designers, the testers, everyone who's skill-based decides they are done, and they get up and they walk out. That's it for that company. It takes way too long. And I can only speak to this to be completely honest, I can only speak to this in the sense of a developer and a software engineer, people in those kinds of positions. It is very difficult to hire a good developer. And it's not because they don't exist, and it's not because developers are, hard to find. There are tons of developers out there. The reason it's hard to find a good developer and stick to a good developer is because the tech industry is riddled with NDAs and patents and just rules around what you can and can't share. So when you get a resume for a developer in front of you, and they say, I did this and I did that, and I was involved in this and I was involved in that, as soon as you start trying to really dig into, well, can you show me that code? No, it's in an NDA. Well, can you show me this code? No, it's source code for another company. It'd be a security concern if I showed you the code. Okay. Can you show me any of the code you've written? Well, I can show you my personal projects, but that's usually never a good reflection of how they work with other teams or other team members, because if it's a personal project, they probably did it solo. And when you're trying to hire a developer for a team, all the solo work they did kind of goes out the window. So now you're saying, all right, well, you're saying you did this, and I can call that company and I can ask them, hey, did they really work on this project? And their old manager might say yes, but chances are sometimes these managers are not technologically inclined. A lot of these managers don't have tech experience, they have people experience. So they might come back and say, yeah, John worked on that, but, I'm not a programmer, so I don't know how good John's code really was. Well, okay. Their tech lead might have said it was good code, but again, the manager doesn't really know how good their tech lead was either, because again, they have no actual frame of reference a lot of times for these managers. So, and that may not always be the case, but regardless, now you're saying, all right, I'm going to take a gamble on this employee. And it can take anywhere up to 3 months to find out whether or not that gamble paid off. It can take 3 months of this person just kind of flying by and just barely kind of bullshitting their way through a lot of these tasks before that you realize, man, this person really isn't as good as I thought they were going to be. So a lot of people might say, all right, if an entire development team or entire team of all these people decided to leave, how about we just go to offshore or nearshore talent and outsource everything? And that comes with its own set of struggles. I've worked with offshore teams, and you've got all kinds of issues and difficulties and struggles to deal with that. Language barriers. You might not think about it, and even though a lot of people understand English and speak English in other countries, accents are really hard to understand sometimes, and sometimes just mannerisms in the way of speech. A lot, especially in American companies, a lot of foreign countries learn English from the UK, which has different words and has different tone. So even if they know English, their message in some sentences can be completely misdelivered. The way that they try to deliver information, they try to communicate, is very different. And then you have time zones, and then you have unfair pay rates, and the list goes on and on and on. There's a lot of issues with offshore outsourcing, I believe, but that's a whole other video possibly. And another thing that has bugged me over the years, and mostly recently, and I may be guilty of doing this, possibly even in this video already, and I know I do this in my work life, but and I really want to stop doing it. It's referring to a person as a resource. Now, I don't like that just because it makes people look like objects. It I think it adds to the toxicity that is continuing to build in this industry, and that people just kind of accept as norm in this industry. A person is a human being with a family and interests and hobbies and a need to eat, a need to fuck, a need to piss, a need to shit. They need to do all these things. They are not a resource. They're not just a tool. I don't care how much you want your video game. I don't care how eager you are to see that new skin on your favorite character. I don't give a flying fuck if you think the devs did a bad job on Cyberpunk. Unless you can program an equal or better video game in the shorter timeline, all you deserve is to shut the fuck up. These are people, real people who have sacrificed their time away from their families. They give up their vacation time. They missed out on memories. They have even given up on children just for you. Just so you can play your video game. So that you can have something to do for hours upon hours and then turn around and bitch and moan because Jackie clipped through an elevator, despite the fact that, spoiler alert, I dare you to tell me you felt absolutely nothing when he died. You're a liar. Period. And also, if you think that wasn't enough time for a spoiler alert, get over it. That game came out last year. Come on. These people are not resources to get you what you want. They are human beings, and they deserve to be treated as such. Crunch culture, harassment culture, entitlement, it all really needs to stop. I have a very dear and important friend in my life who recently wrote about the same thing. She had this to say regarding her time in the gaming industry. There were a lot of little and big things I had to survive. You do not survive in the gaming industry as a woman without them. Some things were slightly bad, others were pretty terrible. The thing that I feel was a life achievement was I survived a toxic direct supervisor. To be a leader of any sort in that kind of environment, they have to be cruel and vile. It's a disgusting fact I've come to realize, and one that had me step back and reconsider my career goals entirely. Now, I paraphrased her quote because in context she was writing about non-male management specifically. But honestly, the reason I kind of chopped up her quote a little bit was because what really stood out to me was that it wasn't just female managers doing this to other females. It was the fact that toxic, cruel and vile, survive, disgusting were all words used with acceptance of the situation. Now, don't get me wrong. My friend isn't saying that this is okay. She's saying that it has become the norm. And as a manager of highly skilled people in the tech world, this kills me inside. I would fall apart if I ever heard one of my employees say that I ever contributed to them feeling this way. I mean, I cannot even imagine beating down an employee so badly that they no longer have an interest in their career path. It's literally, there's no way around it. It's literally just putting effort into making the world a worse place for someone. That's all that is. Mental health needs to be better monitored in the tech industry. We can't just keep accepting that sleeping under our desks or skipping lunch every day just to get that extra hour of work in before the deadline is the norm. When I run projects, I always prioritize the quality of my product over the deadline. But above that, and this is something I generally don't say out loud because I don't think it needs to be said out loud, it should be a given. Above the quality of the product will always be the well-being of my team. A stressed out team will always lead to a lower quality product. And a garbage product delivered right on some arbitrary self-imposed deadline is just fucking pointless. Like, why hit the deadline if it's garbage anyway? So, anyway, please respect the people who create your entertainment and do some research into where your money is actually going. Support companies you agree with and stop feeding money to companies that contribute to this awful treatment of humans. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, if you like this formatted video, like I said, let me know. I'll make more videos like this. If you don't like these videos, then I'll just keep posting this kind of stuff on the blog. If you want to read more about my personal writing regarding my struggles with mental health, that is on my blog, villainite.com. You can read all kind of stuff there, as well as some of my fantasy writing and my own lore around myself, Villainite. And also, if you don't believe me about how crunch culture just doesn't work, you really should do some research. It's not effective. And probably a good starting point is a video right here from Noodle, who's obviously much better at animating than I am, and probably more entertaining. So until next time, stay safe, stay fed, and stay hydrated. Thanks for watching. Bye.